So innovation, what is it? Is it just a buzzword? Is it oversold and overhyped? At the same time, it sounds kind of exciting and important, even though the definitions are quite fuzzy. And when we look at the definitions, they do all involve things like new and improved, and different and better. And they usually pertain to things like processes or products or business practices. So what are we supposed to do with that? Is it just that we do whatever we already do and do it a little different and a little better? Or are we supposed to do radically different things and do them better at the same time? So do we just change the way we do things, or do we change the things we do? And now you might think, Pim, you're a geochemist. Why would you bother with the definition of buzzwords? It's all just semantics. So let me unpack that a little bit for you and explain why I think it's important that we give innovation as a concept a bit more attention in our industry. So my career so far has been quite linear, and it started in the early '80s when my mom would take me to these rocks and minerals shows, and I was about 4 years old at the time, and I remember just being really intrigued by these beautiful crystal shapes and colors, and I just wondered how it came to be that way. And that curiosity sort of stuck with me throughout the years in school. And then later in high school, when it came time to think about whether I wanted to become a professional musician, or perhaps a field biologist, or do something, apply chemistry somehow, somewhere. And then I came across the field of geochemistry, and I realized that in that I could combine a lot of my interests. And I could go out into the field, and I could look at rocks while I also looked at the biology around it, and apply chemistry at the same time. So fast forward to 2005, I completed my master's degree in geochemistry, and I was offered a job in Canada. So I came to Vancouver, and I got to work with this big mining company, and I found my tribe. And I mean that in the sense that, Seth Godin describes tribes in his little punchy book that's called Tribes as well. So I really recommend you read that. And to put that in context, when I was in the Netherlands studying, I was one of 2 students in the entire country who was interested in exploration geochemistry. And now here we were in Vancouver, and we went to the pub on Friday afternoon, and there's a dozen other people talking about how they all, last year's field work, they're getting ready for this year's field work. They all have big stories and told tales about all the field experiences so far. And at some point in the past, they had all worked together in some other capacity. So that really felt like I was coming home. So that was great. And after a year and a half of exploring all over Canada, from the tundra of North Quebec to Manitoba, Thompson, and Flin Flon, I was given the opportunity to pursue a PhD and write my dissertation. Then after 4 long years in Ontario, I couldn't wait to move home. I couldn't wait to move back to Vancouver. And I got a job with an Australian firm as a consultant. And during the next 2 years, I actually learned more about geochemistry than I had in the previous 4. And that was very exciting. And I got to really learn about the industry and understand it from many different perspectives. And then at the same time, it sort of struck me that, our business as a whole, mining and mineral exploration, we're not always at the forefront of innovation. And that goes for both technological innovation and social innovation, which go hand in hand. And it struck me as a bit odd, and I was getting a little bit disillusioned. And I thought, what am I in the right field after all? Should I pursue something different? Should I just completely change my career and go do something different? Should I perhaps go into the tech industry, or should I go into the tech industry, or perhaps environmental? And then I looked at it from the other side, and I realized, no, I should stay, because there's so much room for improvement in our business. There's no shortage of opportunity to improve and innovate within mining and exploration. So that got me then really excited again. So we like to talk about innovation. What is then slowing us down? Why aren't we very good at it? So I gave a suggestion in the title of my talk here. The pillars of innovation, 3 things: people, so ideas, people, and tools. And by tools I mean the means. So everything from technology to the actual hardware to data and funds, etc. So that's very broad. So to start with ideas, I don't think there's a shortage of ideas. There's plenty of ideas out there, but it's not always easy to implement them. So some of them are quite literally quite out there, pulling space rocks into orbit and mining them, bringing the metals back to Earth. And some of them are a bit closer to home. But one really impending disaster that's looming over us as an industry is what's known as the knowledge gap. And that's a really important point I think we have to address. Because after several decades of decoupling the exploration business from the mining business, what we've seen is that the young geologists' careers all depend on sort of the whims of venture capital. So after several cycles of that, and that capital leaving the industry again, and all the young people being let go, the ones that were retained now have a median age of about 71. Last year was 70, so I assume it's now 71. And some people suggest that machine learning and artificial intelligence, they'll make up for that loss of knowledge. And I don't think that's right. I think there is so much knowledge there that if it's not retained, it's not written up in books because that was the previous generation that did that. So we have several generations of mentored knowledge that's out there that, that if it's not transferred to the people coming in now with the new ideas, it might be lost forever. So I think we should do both. I think it's important that we combine that old knowledge with the new thinking, so that the old knowledge can guide the new thinking and really help us bring innovation about. So I think that's where it's really important that we connect those ideas. Okay, so that's ideas. Now, another thing that I think we have plenty of is tools. The mining industry generally is pretty slow to adopt new tools and new technology. So the technology, the innovation space in technology is gone far ahead of where we are generally. And all we need to do is just look around us to other industries and see what are they using in their industries to help them, and how can we adapt that to our needs, and then apply it in our businesses to be more innovative. It's not that long ago that for any kind of heart issue, your rib cage would be cracked open, and there would be very invasive surgery taking place. Now, most of that has been replaced by little sondes that go in, or little robots, very minimal invasive, or sometimes even just a little sonde that goes up your vein to unblock arteries around your heart, etc. So, perhaps in our industry you could think of a little sonde going down underground and finding its way up alteration gradients and finding the ore and just returning only the metals that were interested to the surface, either in suspension or in solution, and leaving everything else behind. That may be a bit far out, but that may happen. So I think on the tool side, we're covered. We have the technology, it exists, we just need to access it and implement it. So that leaves us with the third item, which is people. And we do need people to implement change for it to become innovation. And why is it slowing us down? Like, why would it be people slowing down innovation if we like the word so much? And I think it comes back to that word change. So we need to do things different. We need to change. And some of us tend to be a bit change averse. So we have to accept that innovation for it to take place, the definition being new and better, or new and improved, different and better, we need to change. So we need to accept that innovation is impossible without change. So that's one thing. The other thing that we as people do is we have really siloed our business into these little silos of technological expertise and knowledge. And we work within those little bubbles to improve and innovate, but we don't really work across. So those silos have two negative effects. And the first is that it really impedes collaboration, right? So it's harder to work together if we're just working in our own little bubble, in our own little silo. The other thing is communication, right? So these silos also have the effect that people form their own little tribes with their own languages. And if we don't speak each other's languages, we can't communicate. We can't communicate the science, the problems, the ways that we might be able to help each other solve those problems. So on the first point, collaboration, what can we do? Well, I think that we have hit peak competition. And by that, I mean, especially in our North American sort of mindset of always competing, trying to win, the winner takes all, the idea that we have to be competitive as individuals and as companies in order to get ahead. I think that idea is starting to wear thin. And the individualist winner-takes-all mentality has brought us places, and it's brought prosperity globally, on average, much higher. At the same time, it's left many people behind. And you can see that now, especially in the global pandemic situation. So on top of that, we also see that external demands are really forcing us to be accountable for all the externalities that we produce as part of our business. And one of the things that's forcing us to do is to collaborate. And we see really good examples of that in our industry already. It's starting to happen. In Chile, for instance, there's Nueva Unión. There's a mine owned by Teck and a mine owned by Goldcorp at the time. And the infrastructure to get to the coast, to ship their ore, why not share it? It makes so much more economic sense, environmental sense, business sense. It just required these two competing companies to collaborate. Same thing with Nevada gold mines in Nevada. It's these gold giants, Barrick and Newmont, deciding that for this to actually be a worthwhile venture, we should combine forces. So we see that collaboration happening, and I think that collaboration is going to bring about the next big wave in innovation in our industry, rather than pushing further for harsher and harder competition. So the second thing, the second effect of the silos is this breakdown in communication. So within our silos, we work together, we speak a certain language, but for us to really achieve material breakthroughs, we need to break down those silos. We need to start communicating. So that requires an open mind, that we learn each other's language, and that we really start to communicate our problems, and will likely be able to help each other solve them. So I was once on the phone with a metallurgist and consultant, and he was working on the same project as I was working as a consultant. And when I asked him about the metallurgical test work he was doing, at first he was a bit defensive. And then after 45 minutes on the phone, we learned so much from each other that we agreed we should have these conversations more often. And we could really help not just our clients, but also our own knowledge evolve and improve. So good communication is key. And you may have the right idea, and you may have the adequate funding, and you may have all the tools and appropriate technology to do it. If you can't communicate your idea to who is going to use it, to your audience, the whole work is just a big waste of time and money. And we won't won't succeed in our attempts at innovation if we don't communicate to the end user. But I believe that in general, we as an industry, we have a pretty open-minded bunch of people here. And if we start to have these real conversations about what needs to happen, what needs to change, we can bring about some of that change. We can change the way we do things, and ultimately we will be able to actually change the things we do. So if we communicate effectively across our field of knowledge and expertise in the natural resources, we can really innovate our way through a lot of the real problems that our society is facing. So we can do more with less. So let's all be part of that solution. Thank you.